Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin Bubble news channel. There are many people in the Bitcoin media who will never talk about this or what you just said. The reason for this is that a lot of money and time has been spent on making the media's coverage of Bitcoin more consistent. This is because they want Bitcoiners to follow the rules as much as possible while Larry Fink and others like him change it to fit their needs. This way, people are happy with talking points like number grow up and Sailor-esque. The fact that BlackRock and the biggest banks are now exploring Bitcoin is not a good sign, and looking back, it was a huge mistake. That's a message from author and investigative reporter Whitney Webb. The most powerful companies in the world have joined the world of Bitcoin through spot Bitcoin ETFs. There are now over 1% of all Bitcoin in circulation, with BlackRock alone having bought over 300,000 Bitcoin in just the first few months. In her most recent interview with Mark Goodwin, Whitney Webb said that it would be a big mistake to welcome BlackRock and Larry Fink, even though this news is being praised. Whitney says that people who are interested in Bitcoin are being caught off guard by the news that the price of Bitcoin is rising. She thinks that these big businesses have plans that are against the very idea of Bitcoin, and that terrible things will happen if we let this go on. Whitney says that the end goal is to take over Bitcoin and destroy everything it stands for. They want to make the world a place of CBDCs and get rid of all privacy and secrecy online. Here are some clips from the interview. If you want to see more videos like this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post alerts. If you want to add to the conversation, you can leave your thoughts and comments in the area below. Every action you take on YouTube helps the system and, in your mind, helps the channel grow. Glad you watched, and have fun with the movie. Personally, I believe that self-reliance should be the main focus of the answer. I don't think it's enough to expect the private sector to solve the problem for you because they don't like ESG. When we talk about this public-private play, it's important to remember that what happens, just look at the office of the Treasury Secretary. In this case, too, it was Robert Rubin from Goldman Sachs. He works to get rid of Glass-Steagall. Finally, when the boom bursts in 2008, Henry Paulson of Goldman Sachs is in charge of the Treasury. The next person is Tim Geithner, who worked for Larry Summers. Finally, Robert Rubin is Obama's Treasury Secretary. Then there's Steve Mnuchin, whose dad was a bigwig at Goldman Sachs and who was involved in the financial crisis of 2008. He worked for Goldman Sachs too. In other words, when they're in charge, they make rules that help themselves. They worked for Goldman Sachs and wanted to make rules that would help Goldman Sachs. Okay, in general, when the private sector wants something, they make a big market for it. For example, they spend a lot of money to make the carbon market. The carbon market is also not being used. After that, they will use the government to make people use the carbon market. So they're trying to do that by saying there is a climate emergency. Okay, that's not going to work. What are they going to do if that doesn't work? The way Mark and I have talked about it before is that they are trying to do it through the private sector. Okay, you guys don't want money that can be programmed and watched if it comes from the central bank. That is, if it comes from a private bank, you might. Okay, people have lost a lot of their buying power in places like Argentina right now, which is the other side of this. In other words, I think the poverty rate was really high before Milei took power. I believe the number was around 60%. Then Milei took over and lowered the value of the currency by half. This made it even harder for people in Argentina to buy things. There are now so many desperate Argentinians who are being told that they are getting shock therapy created by a JP Morgan guy that they are doing WorldCoin. They are looking through the Sam Altman orb for shitcoins and a cow tag, which is a digital ID. And the idea is that it would be like having access to the internet and using these tokens and stable coins with Tether, USDC, or anything else that is accepted by Mercado Pago, which is a big part of Mercado Libre and works with Mercado Bitcoin, Brazil's biggest cryptocurrency exchange. And then there's Ripio, which works with all of these guys as well. They will be in charge of all the rails that things move on. People are running there because their money has lost so much value and they have nowhere else to go. In the end, I think the goal is to get people on trackable, controlled money by any means necessary. So if you're not going to do it because you think, oh yeah, this is how I'm going to use JP Morgan coin and beat the Fed CBDC, then it looks like they'll use instability and desperation to get people to join the systems they're making. They're not going to build these tools for billions of dollars and then no one will use them. Either public or private measures will make people desperate and they'll try to use that to their advantage. It will be kind of like 2008. The economy is in bad shape because of the private banks. But now we need the government to step in and rein them in, even though Citigroup picked Obama's cabinet, which was meant to do that job. Okay. They'll be the ones to come in and hold these back. The rules and changes that need to be made are these. The changes that need to be made, though, were written by bankers. It looks like they're going to try to make money worthless in a way similar to that. And you need to use financial goods X, Y, and Z if you want your money to be worth something and keep some of its buying power. All of them will be able to be programmed and watched, if not by the private sector, then by the state sector. They will all be able to work with each other. Many digital wallets and ID systems will appear to be made by different companies, but they are all basically the same because they can all send all of their information to a single global database. And that's pretty much the point here. How are we going to fight that? Please do not use the information. Stay away from the digital wallet. Don't use the ID card. Do not mess with the machine. And it's clear that Bitcoin is a big part of their plans. But as Larry Fink said, they need Bitcoin to stay a system for storing assets. No, they don't want it to be money. Jeff Epstein also did an interview about Bitcoin that I didn't know about until we started looking into this a couple of months ago. Yes, indeed. No, he says the same thing that Fink does. It's not a money. It's a system for storing assets, Basically, if Bitcoin stays in that box, people like Larry Fink, Jeffrey Epstein, and probably Larry Summers, who was on the Zappos advisory board, want it to stay that way so they can use it. Some people in the space, like this RSK guy, say Bitcoin should stop being so revolutionary. It needs to stop doing that and start helping Wall Street. It's pretty clear what needs to be done to stop those plans, make sure that the opposite happens. For example, there needs to be a cultural shift in Bitcoin that goes against what Diego from Rootstock said. We need to drop the whole idea that banks and central banks are irresponsible with money and instead be a threat to their power. If we want to get rich, we need to give that up. That's the way people think there. And I don't think the way sailors think is that different from that. They are pushing people in the wrong direction, and if we go in that direction, they will push people in that direction who want to drop the idea behind Bitcoin and just use it as a tool for Wall Street. No, bad things will happen if we let that happen. There must be a fight. And there is a specific effort against Bitcoin holders to try and get them to follow the rules in that way, but that's done by controlling the conversation in the media. The people who use Bitcoin should want to go back to the original ideas, not the other way around. That needs to be fought for. That needs to be important again. So that's Whitney Webb's in-depth talk on what investigative reporter Whitney Webb said about the possible risks that BlackRock and other large financial companies could face by getting into the Bitcoin market. What we've heard makes us very worried about the role of these organizations. If they gain power over Bitcoin, it could completely change how digital currency and privacy work in the future. Please select thumbs up and write your thoughts in the space below if you thought this movie was helpful. Because you're involved, we can have more important talks. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on post alerts so you never miss a new video. You don't want to miss out on more interesting material and interviews that we have planned. Anyway,